Hey, so glad you're with us for the Friday edition of the Martini Lunch. It's been a long week, and it's going to be a long day today because we got a lot to talk about. We're talking about the Heritage Foundation and their president, Kevin Roberts, and what he had to say about Tucker Carlson. There's a lot to get to there. The whole debate over Israel, who Tucker Carlson is platforming and so forth. A lot of different dimensions to that. Also, late last night, President Trump saying it's time for the GOP to nuke the Senate filibuster, not only to get the government back open, but to get a whole lot of other things going, including nominations that Democrats have been stalling to some extent. But we begin with comments the president said actually a little bit earlier in the week after his meeting, or in conjunction with his meeting with Xi Jinping in South Korea. And that is that the president, this according to NPR, said that the U.S. would begin testing nuclear weapons again for the first time in decades. His quote is, "We've halted many years ago, but with others doing testing, I think it's appropriate to do so," the president told reporters aboard Air Force One. And so the article goes on to point out that the U.S. has not tested a nuclear weapon since 1992. There are treaties about these things, whether it's underground, above ground, outer space, underwater. You're not supposed to be doing it. There's a question, though, of whether other countries are doing it, somehow secretly, China in particular, but possibly others as well. Jim, my issue here, less than geopolitical strategizing, is our nuclear arsenals really old. I think most of it's from the 70s or earlier, and it might be good to figure out if it works. But I know there's a lot of other complications if we were to go down this road. So what do you think?
Yeah, so first of all, it seems like a weird coincidence. This is bubbling up and on the president's attention right around the time as this new movie that's come out, House of Dynamite. I haven't seen it. Some people I do. Some people love it. Some people don't. Basically, it goes through what would happen if someone launched a submarine of unknown country origin, launched a nuclear missile at Chicago, and what happens in that time period. Basically, a very skeptical look at our ability to intercept incoming nuclear weapons. I know some people have argued that missile defense has a better shot than the movie portrays. I've heard some people arguing, look, you never have a 100% guarantee. It's trying to hit a bullet with a bullet, all that kind of stuff. But I just think it's interesting that this is front and center in people's minds when most people don't think about nuclear weapons because they're a very unpleasant thing to think about. I had the reaction that I suspect a lot of people had. I was like, what? Why? We haven't done this in decades. Why do we feel the need to do this? Is this Trump? And then you read into it, and unsurprisingly, the president has a point to this. You mentioned the possibility that Russia has been violating this, belief that China has been violating this. Now, you'd think this is not above ground nuclear testing. I know there are people who have doubts about the U.S. intelligence community, but they tend to notice when a nuclear bomb goes off. That's really kind of hard. Oh, that was a door slamming. Relax, there was nothing to worry about. No. And even underground nuclear testing shows up as a large, unexpected earthquake, and that would be hard to hide. But what there is, one, we've seen a lot of movement and activity at nuclear test sites of Russia and China. And there's been a question about whether you're going through simulations and whether there's something called a zero yield threshold. It's a point of contention between Washington, Moscow, and Beijing. By the way, if you really want to get into the weeds of this, the Center for Strategic International Studies just came out with a new report yesterday, well-timed. Can the U.S. immediately return to nuclear testing? And by the way, the answer for that one is it really depends on how you're defining testing, but the answer is no. It's very difficult to do this stuff immediately. That said, if I'll say adversaries. I think you could probably characterize Russia and China as enemies, but some people get, if we don't want them to do this, then I think at minimum, it is a good idea for the president to say, if you guys don't knock it off, then we're going to do the exact same thing. This is, a form of deterrence, I would argue. And if they are doing these sorts of things, then yes, I think we have no choice but to make sure that our nuclear weapons still function. There are a variety of tests they can do. You don't have to do above ground nuclear testing. I think everybody left, right, and center would say we don't like that. Radiation goes up in the air and then it eventually comes down somewhere else. And, we used to do this back in the 50s. And somebody once actually did, where they used to shoot Westerns out in the Great Midwest. Apparently it wasn't terribly far from where the fallout generally came. And you look at the number of Hollywood stars, including John Wayne, who eventually died of cancer a lot of people think that there's some sort of connection there. Just kind of putting that out there. Like, generally, we don't want nuclear bombs going off, even if it's on remote atolls in the Pacific. Even, you can do underground testing. That keeps the radiation inside. That's a little bit better, a little bit easier. Again, would we rather not have to do this? Correct. But I think also the fact that we can't live in a world in which Russia and China see these rules as optional, and we honor our rules. And so I have no problem. If nothing else, I have no problem with Trump saying, we're going to do this if you guys don't, cease operations that you're doing that violate our nuclear test ban treaties, which was signed in '74, by the way. So again, I'm sorry, the 1997 CTBT banned all nuclear testing. So, a ban is a ban. If you guys aren't going to honor it, we're not going to honor it. Ball's in your court, Moscow and Beijing.
Yeah, no kidding. Now, officially, Jim, a nuke has not gone off in the United States since 1992. But you and I both know that there was one in the Mojave Desert in 2002, and then also a suitcase nuke that went off, I believe, in Valencia just a few years later. And CTU wasn't quite able to stop them from going off, but at least the first one didn't go off in downtown Los Angeles. That was a huge win for the counterterrorism.
We can say that, but I would point out, ever since then, I have liked the fact that it's the middle of the night. I go into the kitchen, I can see the Valencia orange is glowing, kind of to let me know where everything is. I don't trip over my own feet. So there's that. And the Mojave, very few hikers have become mutants since then. So, just a couple of Ninja Turtles. So
seems pretty safe. And the CTU agent who successfully took it out of Los Angeles hid behind a rock.
That's right.
While it went off, and he was fine.
That's easily as safety as the desks of baby boomers that were designed to handle all. Also remember, I had always believed that these were nuclear weapons, but it was only because of that heroic CTU agent that I learned that they were nuclear weapons. And it's that third syllable that makes them particularly dangerous.
That is perhaps one of the legacies of George W. Bush, is that he could not say nuclear, so much so that his own wife at a White House Correspondents' Dinner made fun of him for it.
People said he was wrong, and then Jack Bauer said nuclear, and then I think that settles it. That's the last word. Because if you don't like it, you argue with Jack Bauer, okay?
That's right. Oh, man. Good times. All right. Well, let's talk about money. Hopefully your money is in good shape, but, there's always different ways you can save. And sometimes you're spending money on stuff you don't even know you're spending money on. And so if you ever feel like your money just disappears every month and you've got this spreadsheet, you've got this plan, and for some reason the savings aren't showing up, well, maybe it's time to let Rocket Money help you track every dollar and uncover hidden spending and really help you take control of your finances. Because Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills so you can actually grow your savings.
Make sure that your personal finances don't get nuked, or that if you go on a terrible spending binge, that you can live with the fallout. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that will help you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitor your spending, and help lower your bills so that you can grow your savings. Rocket Money shows you all your expenses in one place, including subscriptions you might have forgotten about. So if you see a subscription you don't want, Rocket Money will help you cancel it. And they'll even try to negotiate lower bills for you. The app automatically scans your bills for opportunities to save, and they'll even talk to customer service so that you don't have to.
Rocket Money has saved users more than $2.5 billion, including more than $880 million in canceled subscriptions alone. Their 10 million members save up to $740 per year when they use all of the app's premium features. So cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/martini today. That's rocketmoney.com/martini. All right, Jim, as mentioned in the open, President Trump now back from his trip to Asia, where those comments were made about nuclear testing and so forth. But he also says in a very long post on Truth Social last night that he got all these questions. Why is the powerful Republican Party letting the Democrats shut down the United States? Well, shut down the government anyway. And then he says that the Democrats tried to with President Barack Hussein Obama and former Majority Leader Harry Reid in the Senate to take advantage of Republicans to nuke the filibuster. Harry Reid, they did take it away for everything except Supreme Court nominations on the nomination side. They left the legislative filibuster in place. Then Republicans nuke the filibuster for Supreme Court justices, so only the legislative filibuster is still in place. Then he says that the Democrats tried to do it under Biden when the Democrats controlled the Senate, and they came fairly close. And he says, so why not have Republicans do it so they can take advantage of it, get their nominations through, get the government open, get U.S. attorneys confirmed, and on and on and on. Here is the ABC News report on Trump's tweet.
This morning, President Trump is calling on Republicans to change the rules in the Senate to reopen the government. Trump posting overnight, it is now time for the Republicans to play their Trump card and go for what is called the nuclear option. Get rid of the filibuster and get rid of it now. The move would allow Republicans to pass a bill to fund the government with a simple majority instead of the 60 votes currently needed. But Senate Majority Leader John Thune has warned against this move, saying it could come back to bite Republicans whenever Democrats take power back.
Well, that's certainly the case. And if Democrats do take power back, they probably would try to nuke the filibuster like they did before. So there's a couple different things here, Jim. First of all, you've got that problem looming out there in the future. But also, you've had a lot of Democrats, or at least enough to notice on social media and beyond, some more prominent than others, basically baiting Republicans to do this, knowing that in the end, they would take advantage of it down the road. But it's also suggesting that Republicans are then responsible for the shutdown if they're not doing it right now.
Yeah. So the entire messaging from Chuck Schumer and a whole bunch of Senate Democrats is basically a Jedi mind trick to try to convince Americans there's no such thing as the filibuster. All you need is 50 votes to pass. And I'm kind of wondering if, like, passing the big, beautiful bill through reconciliation, maybe they're kind of hoping that confuses people on how many votes you need. Look, actually, to pass legislation, you need 50 votes plus the vice president, or 51 votes, or more than that. However, to bring a bill to the floor, you need to cut off debate, and to do that, you need 60 votes. And sometimes it's not much of an issue at all. But the filibuster, that gives the minority party a way to block something from coming to the floor. 13 times over the course of the month of October, the U.S. Senate has tried to bring a continuing resolution to the floor. 13 times it has failed. Every single time every Republican has voted for it. Sometimes John Thune changes his vote so that he can bring it back later on. Every Democrat has voted no, except for Fetterman,
Cortez Masto. Yeah.
Thank you. From Nevada. This is why Greg Columbus is the best podcast partner in the world, and Angus King of Maine. And that's that. We've been at loggerheads for the entirety of the month. Nobody's really budged. Nobody's really moved. I can understand the president's frustration, but I also understand why Senate Republicans have not gotten rid of the filibuster, both this time that they've had the majority and the last time they had the majority. And there are people who argued about this. And I remember talking to Ted Cruz way back in, probably was before, probably was like Trump's first 2 years of Trump's first term. And I said, or actually, no, they didn't have a majority. But like at some point, there was this question of like, well, if they're just going to filibuster everything, what's the point? Is the day going to come? And the thinking was, well, if we don't get rid of it, Democrats will get rid of it when they are the majority. They didn't do that, but almost all of them wanted to do that. And they were prevented from doing that by Joe Manchin of West Virginia and Arizona Senator Greg, help me out.
Kirsten Sinema.
Kirsten Sinema. Look, out of office, out of mind. Irish Alzheimer's. You forget everything except a grudge. So the Democrats did not, but it was not because they hesitated. They really wanted to. They just didn't have the votes to do so. I think, this is a matter of short-term thinking versus long-term thinking. Yeah, I get why if you're a Senate Republican right now, you're really frustrated. But if you give up the filibuster, it doesn't come back under when you're in the minority again. So this is basically future. And by the way, are Democrats going to control the Senate after the midterms? Probably not. They'd have to win 4, but you never know how midterms go. Usually they go badly for the president's party. And here's the thing: if they don't win it back in the midterms, we don't know what this political environment in 2028 is going to be like. We don't know what the political environment in 2030 is going to be like. Like at some point, there will be a Democratic majority again. And if you get rid of the filibuster now, then the next time Democrats have a Senate majority, they can undo everything you did without the filibuster, real easy. And they can pass whatever bad ideas they want, and they can ram it through, and you in the minority will have no opportunity to stop them. So, this keeping the filibuster now is long-term thinking. It is like, look, I'm giving up a little bit of my power to get stuff done now, so that I have the power to stop really bad stuff down the road. And I think most of us look at that and say, okay. The other thing I'm going to point out, my colleague Charlie Cook likes to really get irked about this. Last time, when the Democrats were arguing about getting rid of the filibuster, they said, well, we might as well do it because the moment Republicans are in power, they're going to get rid of the filibuster. That wasn't a crazy thing to say, but you notice they have not. And here we are, at the end of October, and Republican Senate majority, they've not gotten rid of it. And the other thing Charlie remembers is that he says that everybody told him, you're going to switch your position the moment Republicans are in the majority again. And Charlie's like, no, I have not. I think keeping the filibuster is a good idea. It is a good check on a runaway majority power. I haven't changed my opinion. You haven't changed your whole bunch of people. But you know who else hasn't changed his opinion? John Thune. So this idea that Senate Republicans are these, no principle opportunists who have no standards and will just alter their positions to give them the most power, that is not the case. This is being proven wrong every single day. So I think it's pretty obvious, keep the filibuster. Yeah, it's a pain in the neck, but you'd rather have it than not have it because someday you're going to be in the majority again. Now, Donald Trump, when he leaves office, I don't know how worried he is going to be about this stuff. So I understand why in the year and now he wants it, but it is short-term thinking. It is, there was this wonderful experiment about how long children could resist eating a cookie. And, they were told if you wait, we'll give you 2 cookies, or you could eat this cookie now. Unsurprisingly, the kids who had less impulse control, they tracked them for like 30 years. The kids who had the most impulse control, surprise, surprise, had a lot of good things happen to them in life. Kids with less impulse control, unsurprisingly, some things went wrong, right? Impulse control is an important thing to have, Mr. President. And as a result of it, we need to not, I know you want to get rid of the filibuster now, but it will come back to bite you in the end. So Senate Republicans stand strong. I think they're actually winning the debate on the government shutdown right now. Getting rid of the filibuster would be giving the Democrats a huge win and someday down the road in exchange for getting rid of it seems like a minor headache right now.
Yeah, I don't know if the mainstream media covered it, but yesterday at the White House, there were airline executives, and I think the Teamsters head was there. And so that's multiple unions now and major industries, not only just saying, guys, get your act together and open the government. It's specifically pass the clean continuing resolution here. Also, I'm not sure, regardless of Trump's pressure on here, I don't think there's 50 votes to change the rule, even if they tried. I don't think any of the Democrats who are right now pushing to open the government would overall change the legislative filibuster rule. Rand Paul's against the bill, so now you're down to 52. I don't think Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski would go for it, and then you only need one more after that. And so knowing that argument that you just made, I don't think even if they pushed it that they'd get to 50, and then that would be really embarrassing. So stay the course, John Thune. Stay the course, U.S. Senate. Yes, it's a pain, but you also don't want the Senate to turn into the House, because then there's no hurdle to really bad ideas if the same party controls White House, House, Senate. The Senate's supposed to be the place where bad ideas go to die. Let's keep it that way. Mm-hmm. You're going to lose some good stuff too.
Kill the bad ideas. That's where.
Kill the bad ideas.
By the way, for people who detected the nuclear weapon, nuclear option theme to today's podcast, you get a gold star.
Oh man, yeah. Sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. All right, let's talk about sheets, though. I don't think there's anything nuclear about your betting, but nonetheless, if you want the best betting, Boll and Branch is the way to go. I love these sheets. They are so comfortable. They are clearly superior to other brands of sheets that we own. They are very strong. They're very soft, and as you wash them, they get softer and softer and softer. So Boll and Branch, you really can't go wrong.
No one wants to be up all night, tossing and turning, unable to sleep because they're thinking about nuclear war or the nuclear option getting rid of the filibuster. We want you to sleep soundly, and Boll and Branch's signature sheets are the perfect way to start building your sanctuary of comfort, in your underground nuclear bunker. They're buttery soft. Boll and Branch sheets they start out soft and they get softer with every wash. They're breathable to sleep in, so you can add more layers without making your bed feel heavy or hot. And they're made with the highest quality 100% organic cotton in durable designs.
So start building your sanctuary of comfort this fall with Boll and Branch. For a limited time, get 20% off your first set of sheets, plus free shipping at bollandbranch.com/3martini. Spell all of that out, 3martini. That's Boll and Branch, BOLLAND, branch.com/3martini to save 20% and unlock free shipping. Exclusions do apply. All right, Jim, this one's got a lot of layers, but we're going to be talking now about the Heritage Foundation, its president, Kevin Roberts, and specifically his reaction to Tucker Carlson and the blowback Tucker Carlson is getting for having Nick Fuentes on the program. Nick Fuentes is a raging anti-Semite. I don't think he would even disagree with that particular statement. I watched one video of his in the last couple of days in preparation for this story, and it's disturbing to say the least. But so Tucker Carlson had Nick Fuentes on. Didn't really challenge Fuentes on anything that he mentioned. Fuentes mentioning he's a fan of Stalin. Not something the Heritage Foundation is usually known for, is backing Joseph Stalin. But the issue at hand was how we should approach Israel politically. Tucker Carlson, among others, has been very critical of Israel and wanting the U.S. to have much less support and connection with Israel on national security affairs than anything else. So Kevin Roberts, after the criticism of Tucker Carlson, issues a statement. Here is the first part of it, specifically as it relates to Israel policy.
I'll have more to say on this in the coming days, but today I want to be clear about one thing. Christians can critique the state of Israel without being anti-Semitic. And of course, anti-Semitism should be condemned. My loyalty as a Christian and as an American is to Christ first and to America always. When it serves the interests of the United States to cooperate with Israel and other allies, we should do so with partnerships on security, intelligence, and technology. But when it doesn't, conservatives should feel no obligation to reflexively support any foreign government, no matter how loud the pressure becomes from the globalist class or from their mouthpieces in Washington.
Well, that last line certainly deserves some parsing, which we'll probably do in just a second. But then he also got into the whole debate over Tucker.
The Heritage Foundation didn't become the intellectual backbone of the conservative movement by canceling our own people or policing the consciences of Christians. And we won't start doing that now. We don't take direction from comments on X, though we are grateful for the robust free speech debate. We also don't take direction from members or donors, though we are inherently grateful for their support. And we're adding more every day. This is the robust debate we invite with our colleagues, our movement friends, our members, and the American public. We will always defend truth. We will always defend America, and we will always defend our friends against the slander of bad actors who serve someone else's agenda. That includes Tucker Carlson, who remains, and as I have said before, always will be a close friend of the Heritage Foundation. The venomous coalition attacking him are sowing division. Their attempt to cancel him will fail. Most importantly, the American people expect us to be focusing on our political adversaries on the left, not attacking our friends on the right. I disagree with, and even abhor, things that Nick Fuentes says. But canceling him is not the answer either. When we disagree with a person's thoughts and opinions, we challenge those ideas in debate. And we have seen success in this approach as we continue to dismantle the vile ideas of the left.
Well, I think we should dismantle vile ideas wherever they show up. But the idea, Jim, that any criticism of Tucker is slander and insincere and somebody's doing the bidding of other forces or whatever phrasing he used there, seems to be accusing others of the thing he thinks happened to Tucker. So what do you make of this?
I hate to live down to the cliche, but Greg, there really is a lot to unpack here. I think if you ask Nick Fuentes, are you an anti-Semite? I think the answer he would give you is, Carambas, what kind of name is that? It feels very swarthy, Southeastern European. You know. Look, Nick Fuentes is notorious. He's, it's not like here's the thing. We are used to having alt-right groyper weirdos say that they love Hitler, say that they love Stalin, right? Now you're just like, I like anybody who put people in concentration camps. Now you're just general all across the board. I like dictators. I like people. I like history's greatest monsters. And so, it's a free country. Nick Fuentes can say whatever he wants. What's really interesting is the degree to which Kevin Roberts generally seems to believe everybody who is criticizing Fuentes is attempting to cancel him. Now, what is canceling? Nick Fuentes, he's got a podcast. I have no idea if Nick Fuentes, makes enough money from that podcast to support himself. But like, is not having Nick Fuentes on your podcast a form of canceling him? And what threshold does someone have to rise to before you say, yes, this is someone who we should counter in the public debate? Because, for example, this deep thinker, Nick Fuentes, has said that non-Christians should be executed after he and his ilk take power. Now, I think that's a bad... So do we need to have the Oxford Debating Society to discuss, should all non-Christians be put to death? Is that because I feel pretty clear on that one, but I also kind of feel like this is not just I don't think your tax rate suggestion's the right. No, this is like a really maniacal genocidal thing from some snot-nosed punk who thinks he's it's one part trolling, one part insanity. So Fuentes is who he is. Tucker Carlson, the interesting thing, I'm not 100% sure, Greg, that Nick Fuentes is the worst person Tucker Carlson has interviewed this year. There's a lot of competition for that title. For the historian who said World War II was all Churchill's fault and Hitler was such a... But you notice this recurring theme about Hitler's not such a bad guy and, he's misunderstood and all that stuff. There's the Iranian president. There was the Russian president. So then there's so you have the Fuentes. You've got Carlson, who in the course of his 2-hour and 15-minute conversation with Fuentes, in which there was really no pushback, Tucker Carlson said, Christian Zionists, I dislike them more than anybody. Really? Really? In a world full of so many people you could hate, justifiably, Christian Zionists are the ones that bother you the most? And today's Morning Jolt, I go down the list of not just foreign dictators and terrorist groups and domestic terrorist groups, everybody who laughed at Charlie Kirk's murder. You hate Christian Zionists more than them? Really? Okay. You hate them more than the Luigi Mangione fan club? Really? Okay, And I go down the list of all the worst people. And then I get to kind of the sillier, the Kardashians, Meghan Markle, Red Sox fans. Sorry, Red Sox fans. It's gonna, of course, Adam Gase, right? Atheists, vegetarians, CrossFitters, who have to tell you that they're atheists, vegetarians, and CrossFitters upon meeting you. Kathleen Kennedy, right? You can just get all, really? Of all Christian Zionists are the group that you can't stand the most? Because I don't know, just necessarily describe. I'm a Christian supporter of Israel. Whether that fits into the Zionist category or not, I'll leave that up to you. But he goes, he names some names, and Greg, the only person on his list you could remotely consider to be a threat to the United States and its national security is John Bolton, and that's really just for taking a lot of notes, right? But so 8 billion people, and this is the person. So Tucker Carlson, clearly has gone off the deep end. He's gone off the deep end in these. Sings the praises of every government that's hostile to us on this planet. Loves the Qataris. I don't know what's man. That's he loves them. Can't stand Israel. Can't stand Ukraine. Can't stand all these other countries. But that's Tucker. But here's the thing. Tucker interviews Nick Fuentes. Kevin Roberts doesn't have to put out a defense of Tucker Carlson. Clearly, he wants. Maybe he's getting a lot of people saying, "Hey, did you hear this? See this interview Tucker did? What is the Heritage position's position on this?" But he says he's putting out on the tweet or on the post on X. It says there are rumors that we're going to distance ourselves from Tucker Carlson, and Kevin Roberts chose this moment to give Tucker Carlson the biggest bear hug possible and to say, "I am totally with you on this." Which really you didn't see it, and I'm glad he says he has some disagreements with Nick Fuentes. Good. That's a very low bar to clear, but I'm glad you mentioned that. But you really treat Fuentes as as somebody who's worth engaging in debate, and you can make the argument that Tucker didn't really even debate with him very much. Now, if you don't think, that's Tucker Carlson is a very deferential interviewer. Yeah, tell that to Ted Cruz, right? When Tucker Carlson wants to disagree with you, he will disagree with you loudly, clearly. There'll be no confusion over where he stands. There was none of that in the interview with Nick Fuentes. And I know that platforming is this very big argument about, should this person have a platform? Should this person be deplatformed? Look, you're Tucker Carlson. You can interview anybody in the world, and you pick Nick Fuentes? Like I said, he's interviewed a whole bunch of people who I think are terrible human beings. And you and I, we very rarely have guests on this podcast. When we do, it's almost always someone, I guess every time it's been somebody we like a great deal. And it's somebody we'd like to share their thoughts with us. We could do adversarial interviews, but you would know they were adversarial interviews. There are a whole bunch of people on this planet who we are never going to get a friendly interview on the 3 Martini Lunch podcast, starting with Adam Gase. But that, so so continuing the theme, our podcast, we've discussed nuclear weapons, the nuclear option, and I guess this is like Kevin Roberts making the Heritage Foundation radioactive, because there are a whole bunch of traditional conservatives who are like, "Well, I've loved this place since Reagan. I was just at an event less than a year ago at this place. I think highly of the Heritage." Is this guy really speak on behalf of the organization? Is this really where the Heritage Foundation wants to plant its flag? It's very strange. And by the way, I happened to notice this was on Kevin Roberts' X account. And as of this morning, it was not on the X account of the Heritage Foundation itself. It was not on the Heritage Foundation homepage, and it was not on the Heritage Foundation YouTube page. Now, maybe they don't put everything Kevin Roberts says on these things all the time, but it certainly feels like Kevin Roberts wants the world to know that he loves Tucker Carlson and doesn't feel that Tucker Carlson did anything particularly wrong in this case. And I just noticed these official Heritage accounts are not quite chomping at the bit to put out that same message there. So maybe there's more dissension in the ranks over at the Heritage Foundation than you think. But I don't, like, why are we defending these guys? Why is anybody, why is this the cause you've caused? Like, and then this whole, well, we don't attack people on the right. Does Ben Shapiro get that treatment? Does does any other, I'm trying to think of other people who are like, dissident. Does Jay Nordlinger get it? Do pro-Ukraine Republicans get that? I don't feel like I see that same attitude. So whenever somebody who's alt-right friendly goes out on a limb and says something really stupid and obnoxious and mildly to considerably genocidal, people like us give them grief, and it's like, whoa, let's not fight amongst ourselves. But when somebody on the right says something, we should help the Ukrainians, everybody unsheaths their swords and goes at them, and there's none of this, we're all on the same team here. So it's very convenient when we're told we all have to unify and oppose the left. But so I really wonder what the conversations are inside the Heritage Foundation building today, because it certainly feels like Roberts took their reputation into a direction that I have a hard time believing people in that building are really excited about.
Yeah, I mean, the argument is that you want the biggest tent possible, and these people vote for you, so therefore you shouldn't publicly go after them, go after their ideas. You should definitely go after the ideas, but it doesn't mean they necessarily get a seat at the table. I mean, National Review has a pretty good legacy on this front with William F. Buckley going after the head of the John Birch Society. I think it was in the late 50s, maybe even early 60s, when he started claiming that President Eisenhower was a communist, and there were a lot of other factors there as well. And Buckley could have said nothing. He didn't say nothing. He basically kind of shuffled them off to the side. Said there's a lot of people part of the movement who are probably strong conservatives, but in the end, if we want conservatism to get to a majority status, we can't let these people have a pretty strong microphone in the process.
Yeah, Greg, just 3 closing thoughts. One, the argument is if you don't ally with these people, you can't win. And I very seriously doubt the political analysis at work there. I don't think that neo-Nazis are a significant portion of the electorate, and that Republicans cannot win without courting them, without making a wink or a nod, without kind of hinting or alluding to all that stuff. 2, if let's say somebody said, yes, the only way you can win this election is by playing footsie with neo-Nazis. Well, what do you win then? What do you, if you have to make that kind of a compromise with that kind of evil? Did you win? Is it like what at that point? What is the point? Is it worthwhile participating in politics when you have to not just make peace with evil? You have to basically act like evil is good. And here's the third thing. And this is I think the single most tragic part of this entire controversy this week. Greg, I still have a whole bunch of Graham Plattner jokes. I still have questions about whether he feels confused when he watches The Sound of Music and kind of relates to Rolf, the Nazi telegram boy. Yes, he's young. He's 17 going on 18. But nonetheless, we all have our youthful doubt. How can we whack around Graham Plattner if we're going to play, footsie with these guys? So get it together, Heritage Foundation.
Yeah. Addition by subtraction. There's a reason that phrase exists sometimes. So, Jim, I'm so glad it's the weekend. Happy Halloween. See you on Monday.
See you Monday, Greg.
Jim Garrity, National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks so much for being with us today. Please subscribe to the podcast. If you don't already, tell your friends about us as well. Love to have them listening. Thanks for your 5-star ratings and your kind reviews. Please keep those coming. Get us on your home devices. All you have to say is play 3 Martini Lunch podcast. Follow us both on X. He's at Jim Garrity. I'm at Greg Corombos. And coming soon, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. How about that? Have a great weekend. Join us on Monday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.